So in a previous video I said this. Try and embed this as an exploded view in a block of resin. So that thought stuck with me for a while, and having fixed this lens and refusing to break a perfectly good lens, I ended up going on eBay and finding a load of other lenses. Got a whole job lot of them for not very much, and I want to take these apart and cast them in resin as like a whole exploded view. But first, just to kind of test the theory that it's going to work, we're going to do something mildly nostalgic for me. We're going to do a plug, just a standard 3-pin plug. We're going to take it apart and do an exploded diagram of it. And this is the first, well, not this one, but one like it. It was the first thing I modelled in CAD way back whenever I learnt that. So we're going to kind of do an exploded diagram of, or view, of a 3-pin plug and see how that goes. So I'm going to run you through some of the bits we've got to do this. We've got super glue because we're going to need to hold all these pieces together while we pour resin around them, or not together. We've got the resin, and we're going to use a clear polyester resin. You can put less hardener in it to slow down the curing process, and it means we should be able to do slightly deeper pours per layer. And we've got some different diameters of acrylic rods, and this will allow us to suspend all our pieces. And part of the reason I'm doing this plug is I want to see if the acrylic rods disappear in the resin or whether they're going to show up. On a diagram, an exploded diagram, the lines that the parts are all apart and then there's dashed lines between them. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the acrylic rod and some of this very tiny black tape to kind of indicate those dashed lines as well. And then we've also got a vacuum chamber, technically pressure, to try and get any air bubbles out. But first we're going to take this apart and make a layout plan of how we want it to be apart. Okay, so to lay this out, we have our screws, our plate, then our pins. Yeah, no, that way. This bit of the same height. That there for now. This bit on this level as well. Then this bit and this bit with these screws up here, and then we want this up here. So it's scored, it should snap. So the rods can go in at the right place, and we're just going to put a couple of stripy lines on it just to help hold it in place. so we've got a wee bit of a production line here. We've got the resin, and we're using polyester resin, so it's going to smell a bit. I'm sure we'll get to that in a minute. But we get the resin, we put it in the tub, we put the catalyst in with the resin. We then use the sticks to mix the resin. We then put the resin in the vacuum chamber for a quick degas, and then over here we then put it into the mould with the plug ready to cast in the laser cutter, because you can turn the laser cutter on and it will extract air outside, which means all the fumes go out there rather than into the house. So that's the plan. Right, so we had a bit of a problem yesterday. We ended up with some cracking because it got too hot. Poured too much too quickly. Fortunately, we managed to limit it by having it in a water bath, but we still have some big cracks in it. So we're going to try and eliminate those today. Finish the layers. So I'm going to pour a really thin layer of resin over the resin from yesterday that's now gone off. And then we're going to put it in the vacuum chamber and we're going to try and pull all the air out of the cracks. And then when we put the pressure back on by allowing air back into the vacuum chamber, that air should push resin into all of the little gaps and stuff that were created when the resin started to crack yesterday. So you can see here that there's little bubbles popping out from around the edges of some of the items that either delaminated or had bits of cracking along them. So I'm going to complete the layers now, and we are going to pour with bigger gaps in between each layer. Before I was doing it after 20-25 minutes ish, and then ended up really thick really quite quickly, and that didn't give enough time for the exothermic reaction to happen in the green stage. And so the more resin I added, it just got hotter and hotter and hotter, and ended up with a runaway exothermic reaction. But this time I'm leaving an hour and a half plus between each layer, and it's hidden the very end of the green cycle, so it was only just still kind of sticky on top, which might be a little late, but it seems to have worked okay.
Okay, so we need to break into this now. Hopefully it comes apart. Because it's hot glue, we can use a hairdryer. One block of resin. Alright, so I've set this up on my belt sander. Give me a perpendicular face to the sander, and we're going to do this. And you see there's a gap here but not at the top, so it's all about trying to make this block square and have the plug inside straight. So we're going to try that. This way, look. It's a block you can't see anything in. These are the sandpapers we're going to use. Climb the sandpaper ladder. Start with the top one, work our way to the bottom one, polish at the end. So, I made this little rubber thing. This little rubber thing. It's just 4 bits of plywood, a base, 3 sides, and some rubber screw to it. And we're going to clamp that to the bench, and that's just going to give us a nice firm surface to sand against. This is all the sanding done. The plug's starting to show up again, but now I've done up to 600 grit and we're going to polish it because I've run out of grits of sandpaper. Let's do some polishing now. Got this stuff. I'm not entirely sure how good it is, but let's give it a go. Turn this right down so it's nice and slow and put some spongy thing on it.
Okay, so it obviously has a few flaws in it, a few bubbles and a few cracks, but as a learning exercise this has been very useful so that I don't mess up the bigger version of this project. So if you want to see that, or you want to see some of the other random things that I make, then please remember to subscribe to the channel. It helps the channel grow a lot, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.